Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our session today on advanced job cost. My name is Jeanette, and I'll be your guide this morning through some extra features that you may or may not be aware of that you have available to you within job cost. Before we start, I want to remind everybody that part of the invite has a handouts area on the GoToWebinar panel, and there are two handouts attached there. One that is the PowerPoint that we're going to be looking at today. The other is a document that's going to basically follow along with what we're talking about, with some screenshots for you to be able to take notes in. So if you want to take a second to at least get the PDF document printed out, it's a fairly short one. It's 7 pages, and it does cover most of what we're going to be talking about this morning. Right. So our agenda for today is to review some of the extra features that are available in the job cost module that you may or may not have covered in your initial training of the software, that I want to point out that could be really helpful for you, for your company, as far as reporting. And I'm hoping as we go through this that it's going to, if you don't know this already, it will dawn on you that job cost is basically a reporting tool within the Sage applications. Its sole purpose is to gather information about your jobs or projects to allow you to produce meaningful reports or inquiries for members of your company, owners, managers, project managers. So what we're going to cover today, I'm going to go back through and review the default fields that come with job cost automatically, so that you understand where this information is and what's available. And then we're going to talk about some of the other features that you can activate. We're going to spend some time on miscellaneous worksheets, explaining what those are, how you set them up, how you process. We're going to talk about custom fields, being able to add more fields to the job records. And then we're also going to talk about an option that people don't remember is there, is something called custom totals, where you have the option to run some formulas against your job cost master file and have it actually populate fields there that, again, you can use for reporting purposes. So our default fields that come automatically with the software on every job cost code category, you have estimate fields, or some people call this the budget. So whatever you are estimating that your project is going to cost you. We have commitment fields, where you can store commitment information, purchase orders, subcontract information, whether you are entering those directly in job cost or you've got the purchasing module that's interfacing with job cost. You have actual cost fields for your labor costs, material costs, equipment costs. We have revenue fields for what you've billed to your customers, and we can break retention out of that. We also store separate fields for payments and adjustments. And then dollars paid, which a lot of you may not realize is there for just accounts payable. So when you do a check run in AP, it's updating the dollars paid fields on the job cost code category record. This is different and stored separately from payroll, because payroll doesn't send to job cost until you post, and you can't post until after you write the check. So in payroll, your cost is actual cost for each payroll run that you do, versus accounts payable, where you're entering accrued costs in when you enter in your AP invoices, and then it sends again when you actually write the check. So we'll talk about this. I'm going to jump into the software real quick and just go back through some of these areas within the Job Cost Master and then talk more about the AP cost versus the payroll cost fields. So let me go ahead and jump in here to Job Cost. And I'm going to go to Setup Jobs. And what we're going to look at here are the tabs that come after the job compliance window. So starting with contract totals on down, these fields are automatically populated when you post a contract either in CN or you enter a miscellaneous worksheet for a quick build job. It's going to update your contract amount on this window. And then any changes that you push through from a potential change down to an approved change is stored in these separate buckets. And then once it's approved, it adds to the revised contract amount. So you're able to run reports, again, that will show you not only the original contract amount, but any potential changes that you have coming through, whether they're marked as potential or submitted or a verbal. And then your approved change, once it's approved, whether it's inside job cost with a change order there or it's done through project management, that will then update your revised contract amount here. Now, the totals themselves can be broken out by the different time frames on the right-hand side of the screen. So again, if you're trying to report on contract amounts or approved changes that have come through in one of these time frames, year, quarter, month, last month, next month, you have buckets for this, and the transaction date on the transaction record will determine where it posts into these buckets on the left as well as on the right. So again, you've got some flexibility there and some reporting capability there to break these amounts down. The receivables window, this is where we break down the work billed, any retainage that's been held, and then the payments that have come through. Now, when you bill retainage, it will actually reduce your retainage held amount. So these buckets will change every time you run an invoice, an issued invoice or a retainage invoice or a cash receipt through, or if you do anything with adjust receivables, that will happen over here. Those amounts will be stored in the adjustments bucket. And then down at the bottom, you'll see a balance field, and it keeps track of your last draw number for this particular project billing. Your estimate window, again, we store the original, pending changes, approved changes, and then a total, as well as breaking out the totals on the right-hand side. Now, there's one other field on this window that is very important. When you post or update an original estimate and you have everything that's going to come through for that original estimate, you need to mark that estimate as being finalized. Now, you can do that in the software with Tasks Enter Estimate. There is a Finalize button at the bottom of the screen, and it's real time. Once you click that button and you confirm the job number, it will automatically put a check mark in this field right here. The other way that you can do it is manually, but you have to have Audit Setup Activity turned on in order to access this field. Now, if you finalize an estimate by mistake, this is how you unfinalize it. You have to turn on Audit Setup Activity and then come in and uncheck the original estimate finalized checkbox. Now, the benefit of doing this for, again, reporting purposes, and again, that's what job cost is all about. If you continue to enter any changes to this project through Enter Invoice, it's going to update the original field and the total field. You will not be able to tell how much of that amount is because of an actual change order. So if you're not doing so already, please mark or finalize these estimates so that if someone tries to enter another amount through enter estimates, they will be blocked from doing it, and it will force them to do it as a change order. All right, on the cost totals, at the top part of the screen, this is actually broken down. There's actually 3 areas here that are summary for the entire project. The top part of the screen deals with your commitments. So any purchase orders, subcontracts, the grand total is posted here under original, and then any pending changes or approved changes are isolated here. Anything that's been approved will also add into the grand total here. And then as you're invoicing these commitments, either through purchasing or through AP, commitments invoiced will update as well. Right. So that's area number 1, grand total summary of the job. Down below in the column on the left, you have actual cost, job to date, year to date, quarter, and then the month buckets. If you have the additional time frame turned on in JC settings, the weekly bucket will be activated on this window. Dollars paid, grand total again for all cost types. Again, this is for accounts payable, the check runs that you do. Okay, so grand total for the project for the different time frames. And then any taxes that you have paid are stored here. So if you're tracking sales tax, that's what's in this bucket here on the far right. Okay. So this window, cost totals, again, grand total for the entire project, all cost codes, all categories for commitments, cost, dollars paid, taxes. As we go down to the next set of tabs, this is where the amounts are broken out by cost type. So on this window under accumulation totals, for estimates and commitments, we're breaking out labor, we're breaking out material, we're breaking out subcontract, equipment, overhead, and other. So these are the 6 accumulation types that we have in job cost. Each of your categories is marked as one of these 6 types, and when you post to one of those categories, it knows where to accumulate that total to. Now, what you're looking at here is these are your total estimates. These are your total commitments. These are your commitments invoiced to each of those types. If we go down to the next window, accumulation period totals, these are the cost breakdowns. Excuse me. Now, the difference between labor and material, and this is where we come in with this dollars paid window that's the next window down. Labor doesn't come in until after you have printed the check or generated the direct deposit and you've posted. So this dollar amount is actual dollars paid for labor. It's labor cost plus it's the dollars that you have paid out to the employees for this project. Versus this amount over here under material, these are your AP invoices, what you've entered in from either AP enter invoice or you've pulled across from maybe purchasing, you're invoicing from there. That's different because this number here doesn't represent what you've actually paid out to those vendors. If you want a report that shows you the actual dollars paid on the project, then you would run a report where you would add the labor plus anything that's on this window here under dollars paid. You shouldn't have anything in the labor field because labor is back here in this bucket. What you should be adding is your material, subs, equipment, overhead, and other. The total of these 5 fields plus your labor bucket will give you total dollars paid out on this project. Okay, keep in mind here what we're seeing on this window as far as time frame. We have job to date, then it jumps down to month to date, last month, next month, and then the weekly buckets would be listed here if we had weekly turned on in our JC settings. We're going to address year to date a little further down in one of our extra optional reporting features that we have. Okay. All right, so again, these are checks, but only AP checks. Okay. And then now we get to our extra options that we're going to turn on. Now on this screen, MW stands for Miscellaneous Worksheet. And what we have on this window is we have, hold on a second, we have 3 types of miscellaneous worksheet totals that we can store that will accumulate up to the job level. We have 3 fields for job, we have some fields for the cost code, the category, and then here are our custom total fields. I'm going to come back to this as we do each one of these areas. This particular job is mostly blank here. I'm going to go ahead and pull some things in so that you can see how the worksheets work. So I will be coming back to this screenshot here as we go through the rest of our advanced options. So let me close out of the setup job here, and I'm going to come back into our PowerPoint. Okay. Now on this screen, one thing I want to again point out to you that everything that we talked about on those windows where there was a time frame, whether it was job to date, year to date, month, last month, the period to date could be weekly if you've got those turned on. This is all updated by the software. So as you are posting in the other applications or you're posting directly in job cost, as you do this processing, as soon as you finish out, it's posting and it's updating those fields for you automatically. Now, the rest of our options here, we're going to take a look at these one at a time. The one thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands is, even though Sage gives you quite a bit of fields to store information in, it's pretty much, those are pretty much common fields that everybody expects in a job cost module. There may be other things that you need to get into the data for reporting purposes. And so what Sage has done is given you extra options to get that information in, either through a custom field or a miscellaneous worksheet or a custom total. Now, the difference between the 3, the custom field is something that you define yourself. Usually it's static information. Sometimes it can be a unit amount or units or an amount, but most of the time the types of things that people are using these custom fields for are some type of a text or a date or a check, maybe even a checkbox or even a drop-down list, something that can be pulled onto a report or used as a condition for a report to either, bring jobs in or exclude them out of a certain type of report. Now, there are possibly 250 fields at every level within job cost. So 250 at the job, which will be 250 different fields at the extra, versus 250 at the cost code and 250 at the category, which means you have a potential of 1,000 custom fields, which nobody has ever used that much. But I mean, this opens it up to where, again, if you are looking for a place to store information on those records and you don't see a field for it, then you can set up a custom field, and then each value in those records in those fields has to be set up through setup. There's no other way to get the information in other than to go into setup jobs or setup extra or cost code or category and put that amount in or that value in. So what I want to do now is I'm going to jump back in to job cost again, and I'm going to show you here where to set these up. Now, so far, just so you're not confused, I haven't gone past page 1 in your handout. When we get to the worksheets next, that's where I'll point you back to the handout, to the screenshots that are there. All right, to set up a custom field in any application, you go to File, Company Settings, Custom Fields. Now, you want to do the custom fields in the application that the custom field belongs to. Otherwise, if you do it outside, you'll see a whole list of records, and you might get confused. By doing it inside job cost, when you come into the custom fields area, it shows you the records that you can add a custom field to. Whether it's a category, we can do it to add custom fields to the change orders, to the commitment records we can add, and then down below that we have the cost code, the extra, and the job. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just add a couple of fields to the job record so then I can show you where those will show up. So highlight the record that you want to create the custom field for, click Edit, and you'll get a window. If this is the first field that you're adding, it'll be blank. If there are other custom fields already there, you'll see a list of those. Click the Add button, and you'll get the window to add a field. And I'm just going to enter a couple of different types of fields that we can add so that you can see how this window changes, and then you'll see the result when we go back in to look at the job. So this first one, I'm saying it's a text, so it's going to be alpha. And I'm going to give it maybe 25 characters. If it's a required entry, meaning when you set the job up, you have to put a value in there, then check the box. If it's not required, then leave this checkbox blank. If you want the value to, regardless of how you type it in, to be all caps, check the box. If you want this to be a name field, meaning you're going to use the Sage format where it's like last name, semicolon, first name, then check the box for name field. The justification will default to left for text, and then ODBC, the default is to allow read and replace on these fields within the custom field record on the job. You just click OK to that, and it adds it to the previous window. So if I want to add another one, this one I'm going to say is a checkbox. I'm going to change the type to checkbox. Notice that the screen changed. So it took away the fields that it doesn't need for that type of a field. Let me add another one. Let's do a date. And you'll see that, again, it changes the screen. If it's required, put a check mark. It defaults to month, day, year. You can change that if you need to. And let's do one more. Let's do a drop down. Okay. And again, the screen changes. Now in this type of window, what you have to do is put in your item. So you're going to build a list right here. So we can say, we'll just call it 1 for now. You just type in your description, hit the Enter key, and it moves the value down into the box. Now, if you make a mistake building the drop-down, we can't insert things in, all we can do is the erase last option. So if I made a mistake and I maybe named this 3, or I put in 4, and I forgot 3, or 2, you have to erase up to where the mistake is, and then re-enter your items from there down. Now, the one thing I will point out on this window, you can't insert a custom field either. So if you forget something, you had a certain order that you wanted these fields to be listed in, unfortunately, you cannot go back and move these fields up or down, or insert something in between fields. It will always add your field to the bottom of the list. All right, once you have all of your custom fields, when you click the Close button, it's going to tell you that it needs to upgrade your job cost master file. It needs to go through the step to add those fields to all the existing jobs in your master JCM file. So go ahead and click Yes, and yes to your backup question. And I'm going to give this a print file name. Okay, and then lastly, it tells you that if you want to share these custom fields with other master files on your system, you need to go into that company and from Tools, run Upgrade Files. Otherwise, these custom fields only exist for the job cost master that you've added them into. The other thing, excuse me, that I will point out is when you upgrade software from one version to another, and it forces you to upgrade your data, at that point, all custom fields will be added to all of those job cost master files. So something to keep in mind. Excuse me. All right, once those custom fields have been added, if you go into Setup Jobs and bring up a job, if you come down to Custom Fields, the Custom Fields window, those are now on your job record. So you can start entering text or dollar amounts or units or dates, or change the drop down. And then again, these fields can be used anywhere in the software for reports. They can be the Timberline reports. You can add the fields in or condition by them. You can pull these into a crystal report. You can pull them into an inquiry. All right, so our next set of fields that we can work with, optional, are the worksheet fields, miscellaneous worksheets. So these are also user-defined. The difference between doing a worksheet field versus a custom field is that you can enter values with an entry grid. So these values are going to be units or amounts. So it's going to be something that doesn't already exist within the software. So it's not an estimate, it's not a contract amount if it's a contract job, it's not a cost, it's something else that you and your company have defined that you can't find. Again, you can't find a place to put it, and you want to be able to use an entry grid to enter the values in. So we have multiple fields that we can work with. So it depends on what it is that you need, and then where do you need to enter it at. We have 3 fields at the job level that we can use, 3 at the extra level, 6 at the cost code level, and 4 at the category level. And I will tell you that as we get in, we're going to define this, and then when we get into the setups, I'm going to point something else out about the cost codes. And again, entered with an entry grid. So let's jump back into job cost. And if you take a look at page 2 in your handout, you're going to have to give some thought to this and make sure that your setup is how you need it. The first thing I want to point out is for the cost code entries, depending on how your cost code is sectioned. The example in your book, the second screenshot down, shows how the sample data is structured for the cost code. It's in 2 parts. The first section is division. The second section is called section, which is really the actual item that you enter your cost to. Once you know what those 2 sections are and you know what it is or where it is that you need to store this amount, you're going to come in under File, Company Settings, JC Settings, and you're going to go to the Miscellaneous Worksheet button on the side, and you're going to define for each of these different cost code amounts that we can put in, and there are 6 of them, you're going to define at what level you want that amount entered to. And when you click the drop down next to each one, it will show you your sections. So if I need to store material, we've defined the first one as stored material. If I want that to be entered at the group level, I can leave that at division. The first group or the first level is where it will default. So if I need to say, well, I want to know cost to complete, but I want to know at the actual item level, I would change this to section. So again, the first thing that you do is you define which of these you're going to use, and you can define, I don't have a screenshot for this, I'm going to show you next here. Inside custom descriptions, you can change these descriptions if you want to, and you can activate number 5 and 6 and define those in custom descriptions as well. So again, JC Settings is where you define the cost code level. Custom descriptions is where you change the description if you need to. Sage went ahead and defined those first 4 for the most common. So let me get down to the JC here, and let me find here. They even changed the field name. So you see where it says JC Cost at Completion? That's actually one of the of those miscellaneous worksheet descriptions. If you come down to miscellaneous cost code amount 5 and 6, these are the 2 here that you can also change the descriptions on. And I could simply say, okay, this is our class amount. We also have the 4 category amounts. So I could change this to class cat amount, so I can show you where that changes. And let me change this up here to say CC. Okay. And the extras, if you're using the miscellaneous worksheet for the extras, those fields are right underneath. So you can change, and here are the job fields. Let me change this one here to say job amount, so you can see where that changes. Okay. So now if I come back in here and go back to JC Settings and go to Miscellaneous Worksheet, here's my class CC amount, and I can say I'm going to put that at the section level or the item level. All right, the next place that you need to go, if you are designing a miscellaneous worksheet for your company, and you want to use a brand new entry, or even if you want to modify one of the ones that comes with the software, you're going to go to Tools, Customize Miscellaneous Worksheets. This is at the top of page 3. If you hit the list button right here where it says View, these are the ones that come with the software already built. So you can go through and look at these or pull them up inside Inner Miscellaneous Worksheet to see how they look. We're going to actually take a look here in a minute at the contracts. This is where you actually will enter your contract amounts for quick bill jobs. But we're going to create a brand new one here for class. We're going to describe this as cost, class cost, we'll call it. We'll also add the category to this. Okay, so we give it a name, we give it a description, so we can see what this is supposed to do when we're selecting our view. And then down here where it says cost code entry fields, these are the fields or the columns that we want to see when we go into this miscellaneous worksheet. And so what you're going to see here are the available fields that we can use, along with the 6 here at the bottom. Here are the 6 miscellaneous cost code amounts that are user defined. So I can say here, I want this class to be available. All right. Now, when I double click on that field, I get another little smaller window that's on page 4 at the top. I have the option of saying, whatever I put on the screen, I want you to add to that field, add to what is already there, versus replace what is already there. I'm putting in a grand total that does the replace. So you just need to select which way you want it. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at add to. So I put in an initial value. If I come back and enter a miscellaneous worksheet again using the same view, it's going to add to what is already there. It shows you on the side what columns you have set up and how those columns are going to work, whether you're adding or replacing. Now, in addition to your entry fields, you can have more than one entry field on a grid. So you don't have to, you're not limited to just one. I could have multiple values that I'm entering in on the same entry view. At the same time, I can index over here and I can see the job cost output fields. These are display fields. So I can say OK here. Now it's going to automatically show me the cost codes, but I might also want to see the description. And what I might do here, I'm going to erase this and I'm going to put the description first, and then I'm going to index back over to the entry fields and put the entry amount after that. Okay. So I want to see my grid. I want to see the cost code, I want to see the description of that cost code, and then I want to see the entry column. Now, if I want to add category values to this same entry view, I can click on Category View, and then I see the fields that I can enter at the category level. And you'll see here that I've got my miscellaneous category amount. I can also index over to the output fields, and I can say, show me the description, and then I can index back to the entry fields and grab the class amount. And again, Maybe at this level I want to replace. Now there's a checkbox here for available only in cost code, or excuse me, job cost at both the category and the cost code level. This has to do with project management. If you want your project managers to be able to enter to these worksheets in both project management and job cost, you have to check the box here. Otherwise, if you, leave it unchecked. If you check it, then they will only see these worksheet views inside job cost. It will not be available to them in project management. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm going to now, if you take a look at page 5, I'm going to go ahead and go to Tasks, Enter Miscellaneous Worksheet. And this is where we're going to get our grid. So I'm going to go ahead and use my List button. The first thing I want to demonstrate to you is how to use the contract view on a quick build job. So you're going to come down here to Contract, and you're going to click OK. And then in the job field, you're going to put the job number that you want to enter the contract amount to, and notice the message that comes up. It's going to disable this field because of the billing level. Our billing level on this job is at job. So I'm going to OK that. And then once that I get into the grid, I have to enter out of the report date field. And then if I click on the job button at the bottom of the screen, I have a field here for contract amount. So I can enter my original contract amount here on this window. And when I OK this and I save it and accept the changes and finish, this is a real-time automatic post. It doesn't prompt you if you want to post. It doesn't look at JC settings for the post. It automatically posts. So let me go back now one more time. And this time I'm going to use our class view. And I'll just go ahead and use the same job number. And then I enter out of the date. You have to, and this is kind of a learning curve. When you put the job number in and it pulls the date in, if you don't hit the enter key to get out of the report date, you will not see the rest of the buttons at the bottom of the screen, nor can you enter information in. All right, now, the entry. The job that you're entering the miscellaneous worksheet for has to have cost codes set up on it prior to going in to enter miscellaneous worksheet. And this is on page 6. It's the second important note. You can't add cost codes on the fly, and you can't, if the cost codes don't show up on the screen, you're not able to enter to them. So typically, you're not able to do this until maybe after you've imported your estimate in or entered your estimate in, because that will bring in all of the cost codes. And this is true even on a quick build job. If you're trying to enter a contract amount on a quick build job that you haven't done anything for, you're going to have to manually add a cost code to that job with setup cost codes, so that there is at least one cost code on the job so that you can get to the job button at the bottom of the screen. All right, now, the cursor, I hit my enter key and notice that my cursor skipped over this first cost code. This is a group cost code or a division. And because I set up this add to class CC amount as a section, the cursor will only go into those cost codes that are sections. So if I enter a dollar amount here and I hit enter, the next cost code that it goes into is an item cost code. It skips the group. So I just keep entering my values in a grid. If you don't have extras, that column will not be on the grid if you're not using the extra field. It pulled in the description here only because I added it as a view or a text view field. Now, if I want to enter category information, if your worksheet view, if you define something on the category view, if you click the category button, then it takes you to that window. And on this window, at the category level, we don't have group cost codes, so it's jumped right down to the category level. So here I can put in amounts. I can just go down the line. And fill in as I need. And then if you want to go back, you can go back to the cost code. Right. Once you have your values in, click the Save button, and then Finish. And again, this is an automatic post. Right, so if we go in and we take a look now at our job, look at the job that we entered the stuff to, and if we go to the Miscellaneous Worksheet view, there's our grand total for the cost code level, the $250 here, and then for the category entry, there's our grand total there of $150. So again, this is automatic post from the entry. Now, if you go down to the cost code level, the Miscellaneous Worksheet screen will be filled in with this value. If you go to the category level, your category amount will be filled in. And then back up here on the contract, the contract amount would be filled in here. Okay. Now there's one other important note on page 6. You are able to enter accounting-related information with a miscellaneous worksheet. But the trick here is you have to add the GL account number to the entry grid. So if you take a look one more time at Customize Miscellaneous Worksheet, you'll see right here there is a field for GL accounts. So you can, if I haven't ever talked to anyone who has needed to have a worksheet in job cost updated GL account number over in General Ledger, but that is an option if you need it. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about today custom totals. Right. Again, these are user-defined. So we're going to use the example that's in your handout on page 7. Remember in the master file when we were looking at the totals, the cost totals, it went from job to date down to month to date. There was not a year-to-date accumulation bucket on that screen. And some customers that I've spoken to would like to store that number at the end of the year so that they can do comparative reporting. And so that's the example we're going to use today. So we're going to give that field, that first custom total field, a name in custom descriptions. There are 6 fields that we can use, six custom total formulas that we can run against our job cost master file. And it will replace what's there. So it's not an accumulation, it's a replacement type processing. The one thing to remember is that if you need to add stuff up from the category record, we'll use this as our example here, the formula that you create has to be created off the category record. Otherwise, the number that comes up when you process will be bogus. If you make a mistake and run it either on the job or the cost code level, it's going to take the value on those records and multiply it times the number of categories that you have. So you need to make sure that you pick the right record when you create the formula. And then that formula is going to be entered in JC settings. So let's go back into job cost again. And first we're going to go into company settings again, custom descriptions. And we're going to scroll down to the JC fields. And we're going to find JC custom totals. There we go, 1 through 6. We're going to change this first field to say year-to-date labor. And we'll make that a capital L. Okay. All right, so that's the first thing we do. Then we're going to come in under Tools, and we're going to go down to Formulas, and we're going to create a brand new formula, and we're going to create it again off the category record. So I'm going to change my record using the index button to the JC category record, and we're going to use an if statement here. We want it to look to see if the accumulate as, we need to find that field, there it is equal to labor, then go down and grab year-to-date cost. Oops, I picked job to date. I wanted year-to-date. Okay. All right, so this is what the if statement is going to say. If the accumulate as, which the category has to be marked as one of the 6 accumulation types: labor, material, equipment, sub, other, overhead. So if it's labor, grab the year-to-date cost. I'm going to say okay to that, and we're going to call this formula, we're going to name it year-to-date labor. And then I'm going to come back in to JC settings, and I'm going to go to the custom totals button. And right here, I can use the list button, and I'm going to grab year-to-date labor. Oops, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Double click on it. Okay. And then because I want this formula to accumulate up to the job record, I'm going to click the accumulate as. Otherwise, it'll only accumulate up to the cost code level. So if you want your formula to go all the way up to the job level, to the job record, make sure that you check the accumulate box. I'm going to OK that and OK my settings. And now if I run tasks, recalculate custom totals, we'll watch the background to make sure that it's done. That was fast. And now if we come in and look at a job, and we'll just pick the one we've been looking at. And if we go back to the miscellaneous and custom total window, oh, we might not have had any labor in there. Let's see. Let's find somebody who has year-to-date labor. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. Job number 6. So right here, it's come through. It's added up every labor cost, every labor category, and it's updated that then into this year-to-date labor field. So this can come in handy if you, at the end of the year, before you close the month that rolls into a new year, if you wanted to save some of those year-to-date values um, before they get zeroed out, you could go ahead and you could even create a formula for each of the 6 different types and then run, create the formulas, put them in JC settings, and then run Recalculate custom totals. And then these values will sit here until next year. And then at the end of next year, again, before you close the month that rolls into a new year, run the Recalculate custom totals again, and this will update those fields. It'll replace last year with this year. So it doesn't have to be I'm using an accumulation for the year-to-date amounts as an example, but this could be anything that your company comes up with that it's a value that needs to be calculated from existing information within the system that you don't want to have to enter in a grid, or you don't want to have to enter through a custom field. You want the system to automatically calculate it and populate it for you. That's what these 6 fields are used for. Okay. All right. So in closing, I just want to review a couple of these things. That you have these, your standard fields that come with the software that you should be, taking advantage of for reporting. And again, if you're not finalizing your estimates, you need to do that so that you can do change orders and you can isolate those separate from the original estimate. If you've got quick bill jobs, you can get the contract amount in on those quick bill jobs for reporting purposes. And again, change orders if those values change. Now, in addition to those, you've got 16 worksheet fields that you can work with. Again, 3 at the job, 6 at the cost code, 3 at the extra, 4 at the category, so that you can use a grid to enter those values. Or 6 fields that you can apply a formula to and have the system calculate those values and update those records. And then 1,000 custom fields, 250 at each level. So you need to take advantage of all these extra fields if you're not already, because again, that's what the job cost module is all about, is reporting. So we have a minute or 2 left for questions. So if anybody wants to type in any questions that you might have, if you want to type those in on the GoToMeeting grid, then Tina can read those to me and I can answer you right now. Or if you want to think about it, you can email Tina your questions and she'll forward those on to me. So Tina,
There doesn't seem to be any questions, Jeanette.
No questions? Okay. All right. So I think then we'll go ahead and close for the day. I want to thank you guys for joining me, and I hope to see you in a future web session. Thanks.